Well, from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, welcome to our instant analysis here on Buckeyes Now after Ohio State quite literally survived against Minnesota 79-75. I'm Brendan Gulick, and this is about as high up as you could get. As you could tell, you could see the Big Ten tournament court is off to my left, and the March Madness Final Four court off to my right. I'm sitting right in between the curtain, which is dividing the two courts, which frankly is really pretty cool. I figured this would be kind of a neat angle to show you here in Indianapolis, where in the NCAA tournament itself, both of those floors are going to be active for Sweet 16 games. But for now, one side's being set up for a few weeks from now, and one side is where all the action is here for the Big Ten tournament this week. Let's talk about Ohio State. 79-75, they beat Minnesota today in a game that, for a good chunk of time felt comfortable. And then there were these few moments here and there that really, borderline gave you a heart attack. Certainly toward the end of the game, it was anything but comfortable. The Buckeyes, for whatever reason, just kind of crumbled under the full court press that we saw from Minnesota late. A couple of missed free throws certainly didn't help their cause. But thankfully, E.J. Liddell was able to convert on his couple of foul shots late in the game. And, by the end of things, kind of put it away. Ends up being a two-possession victory. But, Minnesota cut it to 1 point. And, for a Buckeye team that led by 14 and again, for a good chunk of this felt comfortable, the tail end of that second half really started to sneak away. And I think Ohio State, kind of recognized they've got to get back at it. This Buckeye team, dropped 4 games in a row at the end of the regular season, and several of those losses were because of some poor play at the very tail end of games. Certainly the Illinois season finale comes to mind. Missing the last 10 shots in a row was pretty costly against Illinois. The offense wasn't quite as cold so much as I thought. The Buckeyes just kind of stumbled under pressure that Minnesota had thrown their way. And, thankfully it was enough. Survive and advance is the name of the game this time of year, and good for the Buckeyes for figuring out a way to win. Even when it's a heart attack type game, when you win, sometimes that's enough to just erase the sour taste in your mouth that you've had recently. And hopefully Ohio State can use this as some momentum now, because the road doesn't get any easier after playing Minnesota today. Ohio State's got Purdue coming up tomorrow afternoon, less than 24 hours from now. It's a Purdue team that swept Ohio State during the regular season, beating them both, in a reasonably competitive game in West Lafayette. And then obviously Jaden Ivey hits the big late three in Columbus to knock off the Buckeyes, and that was awfully disappointing. And it was the only blemish in what could have otherwise been an 11-game winning streak. Let's take a look at the box score from today's game. We'll try to break down some of the balance that the Buckeyes had, because frankly, I thought on the offensive side, Ohio State really did a good job of, finding open players and not forcing anything crazy. In the meantime, you're going to hear some of the announcements behind me, so hopefully that won't be too distracting. But the floor is now opening up as Indiana and Rutgers get ready for their contest. So here's some music and the public address in the background. But they basically took some time between games to sterilize everything and make sure all the COVID protocols are being followed appropriately. So as we turn our attention to the box score, look, the Buckeyes had 5 players in double figures. And it felt like, all 5 of them really had moments where they contributed pretty regularly. Kyle Young got off to a great start early in the game. He finishes with those 11 points. But, Young, considering the last couple games offensively haven't been great for him. For him to go out and grab 11 points, I thought was a nice showing. And he obviously got going early. Dwayne Washington had a pretty efficient day, 6 of 9, hit a couple of threes. Obviously, missed 1 free throw late, which was a bit frustrating, but 16 points and got the job done. I in general, liked what I saw from Dwayne today. Justice Suing had I thought, a really good game, because every time he stepped to the free throw line, it felt like Suing was going to take advantage. And 7 of 11 isn't a perfect percentage by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly the volume was there, and he was getting the ball in his hands pretty regularly. 16 points for him is a really good showing. E.J. Liddell was on the floor quite a bit, 35 minutes played, finished with 14 points, had some tough looks inside. He had 5 rebounds and 4 assists as well. And if you caught the post-game press conference from Chris Holtmann, one of the things that I think I most took away from that, C.J. Walker asked Coach Holtmann if he could come off the bench and be taken out of the starting lineup because he thought it might be better for the team. Well, I'll give him a lot of credit because it certainly seemed to work. Buckeyes started the game on a 13-0 run, and Walker was not on the floor during that stretch. The defense early on was pretty solid, so give CJ some credit. Really checking his ego, and not a surprise at all. A guy that's pretty darn selfless, and clearly his teammates love him. And I don't think anybody's going to debate that. For him to say, "Hey, Coach, I want to come off the bench. I think it's better for us." Great for CJ, and good to see that it worked out well for him today. And I loved the way Moussa Diallo played today. I asked Coach Holtmann about it in the press conference after the fact, and he raved about Diallo. 8 points in 12 minutes. He played some important minutes because Kyle Young got in foul trouble, and the Buckeyes needed Diallo to at least spare them a little bit. I thought he played well on the defensive end. He had a great sequence where he blocked one on one end and then ran the floor the other way and had an alley-oop layup from C.J. Walker. So that was probably the most memorable play that Diallo had today. But I thought this was perhaps Moose's best game of the season. Zed Key maybe a little frustrating today. I don't think he quite played the way he was capable of. Missed a couple shots at the rim. Hopefully he can get it going tomorrow because with the size that Purdue presents, Zed Key really a guy that I think Ohio State needs to lean on. Justin Arns was in the starting lineup today for the first time in a few weeks. And, look, when he's on the floor, he's going to get hugged around the three-point line pretty much every time he touches the ball. And I think it's getting harder and harder for him to get open looks. There was one instance in particular when he was coming up the left-hand side of the floor, and he stepped outside the three-point line, fake like he was going to drive, and when he stepped back, the defender wasn't buying it because they were content with Justin to basically say, "Hey, look, you never hit the rim, so we're going to force you to pass the ball." I think the Buckeyes need to maybe run some different actions to try to get him open because they certainly want to give him more than 2 opportunities to shoot the ball. His only 2 points came on a fast break layup after he stole the pass. So hopefully Arns can have a better game tomorrow as well. Seth Towns only in there for a couple minutes, but still fighting a little bit of a knee injury with Towns. But all in all, fairly solid there from the Buckeyes. They were almost 1.1 points per possession for the game. Scored on 51% of their possessions. That's pretty good. Layups, 11 out of 22. That's a little frustrating. You certainly don't want to miss 11 layups in a tournament game, but by the end of the night, didn't cost them the game. 44 points in the paint was certainly a big number for Ohio State. The Buckeyes didn't hit a basket from outside key until E.J. Liddell hit a three-pointer with less than 5 minutes to go in the first half. I mean, it was basically a drive to the basket type game. The Buckeyes really weren't connecting on many jump shots, and I know that was troublesome for them. That's not something that they certainly want to make a regular habit of. But all in all, 44 points in the paint against a team in Minnesota that was missing their big man and Liam Robbins. You can do that on a night like tonight. I'm not so sure you're going to be able to do that tomorrow against Purdue. Get Travion Williams and Zach Edey and the way that the Buckeyes kind of struggled in the key against the Boilermakers the last couple times. So that'll certainly be something to keep your eye on. And then look on Minnesota side of things. Their guard play in the first half wasn't very good. Williams and Mashburn and Carr combined to go 6 of 30 in the first half. That's not going to get the job done. But give them a lot of credit because when it looked like they were out of it, those guys, especially Carr, really helped them get back in the game. At one point, Minnesota had cut this to a 4-point game. Coach Holtman called timeout. There were roughly 8 minutes left, and the Buckeyes answered with a nice scoring run to push it back to a 14-point lead. And then all of a sudden, Richard Pitino and his team ratcheted up the pressure, and those guards didn't give in. And a couple of late threes and a couple of costly turnovers for the Buckeyes hurt and made this a tight game late. But in the end, the Buckeyes still found a way to get it done. So a win over Minnesota. It's only the third time these two teams had ever played in the Big Ten tournament against one another. The Buckeyes have won all three of those games. They were the first meeting since 2015. And it sets up a Big Ten quarterfinal matchup with Purdue at 2 o'clock-ish, roughly 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, right on the court behind me down, 1,000 feet below me, it feels like. We are all the way up in the nosebleeds here, up in the press box, but still obviously enjoying covering the game. Look, this Ohio State team needed a win, I think, just in the worst way. You really didn't want to go into the NCAA tournament having dropped 5 in a row. And frankly, I think it helps them that they were challenged today the way they were. If they would have coasted to a win, I'm not so sure that would have, been look, you want to win games this time of year any way you can get them. But I like the idea of having to really compete hard and be challenged in a Big Ten tournament game, and fighting to a win, recognizing that it could have slipped through your fingers. I feel like there's something to be learned from. There's something you can grow from in that situation more than if you just, blow out a team by 30 points. And for the most part in this league, there's not going to be big, crazy, lopsided wins. You don't have to look much further than the seeding to figure that out. Ohio State enters the tournament as the 5 seed, and yet if the NCAA tournament started today, the Buckeyes would probably be a 2 seed nationally. But a 5 seed in the World Conference tournament, that should tell you certainly how good Big Ten basketball's been this year. Okay, so that's pretty much a wrap for this afternoon's coverage. Again, tomorrow, approximately a 2 o'clock tip-off, Maryland will play Michigan in the first game of the day, and then it'll be Ohio State-Purdue. The winner of those 2 games will meet in the Big Ten semifinals on Saturday afternoon. Tomorrow's game is also on Big Ten Network. Saturday's game and Sunday's championship game, should the Buckeyes get there, will also be televised live on CBS. I'm Brendan Gulick from Lucas Oil Stadium. We'll see you again tomorrow. The Buckeyes and the Boilermakers, round 3. We'll see if Ohio State can get Purdue's number in the third matchup. See you tomorrow.